Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. House Democrats moving full speed ahead on President Biden's spending agenda. Votes expected on both his social spending plan and infrastructure bill. Reports say the Justice Department is considering settling lawsuits with illegal immigrants by giving them $450,000. Both President Biden and the White House are responding to the claims, but are giving mixed messages. Vaccine mandates. President Biden says they'll end the pandemic sooner, but what are they doing to law enforcement? Now billboards are popping up to recruit officers. Who are they targeting? The Deputy Attorney General says the Justice Department is going to do more to combat ransomware attacks and cyber crimes. Her department recently extradited a suspected Russian cybercriminal to stand trial in the U.S. Today could be the day. The House is expected to vote on two major pillars of President Biden's agenda, the social spending plan and the infrastructure bill. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more.
House Democrats hopeful they'll vote Friday on both a sweeping social safety plan and the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
There is no doubt that we need to get these bills finished, but I think we are on a path to doing that, and the end is coming very, very soon. Literally, I think within the next 24 hours.
The chair of the Progressive Caucus saying progressives are ready to vote both of them through, and Democrats are just waiting on a few in other parts of the caucus.
Almost everybody on board is on board within the Democratic caucus with both bills, so we're just waiting for a handful, and I think we will get that handful, and then we will pass both bills through the House.
Some Democrats want to delay a vote until a Congressional Budget Office review comes in. Already, timelines for passage of the infrastructure bill have been pushed back twice, but when it does pass, it'll go to President Biden for his signature. As for the $1.85 trillion social spending plan, that's likely to face challenges in the Senate. A revised version was sent out Wednesday night that's over 2,000 pages long. Paid family and medical leave was put back in after it was dropped earlier due to opposition from Senator Joe Manchin. And he hasn't changed his mind about it.
I don't think it belongs in the bill.
Democrats also added work permits for immigrants, including illegal immigrants, and changes to state and local tax deductions. Republicans have criticized the size of the bill, saying there isn't enough time to properly review it. House Republicans also said Thursday they're feeling more confident it won't pass. Representative Fred Keller told Fox News if it were good for America, the speaker wouldn't have to have so much trouble twisting arms of her own party to get it done. Democrats are expecting Republicans to use procedural delay tactics to drag out the votes. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
President Biden and the White House are giving mixed messages. That's over reports that the Justice Department plans to pay some illegal immigrants $450,000. Biden initially denied the claim, but the White House said otherwise in a daily briefing yesterday. Let's take a look.
White House Deputy Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre on Thursday appeared to suggest that Biden is okay with the Justice Department settling with illegal immigrants who were separated at the border. Biden had previously said one day before that such reports are garbage and that it's not going to happen.
If it saves taxpayer dollars and puts the disastrous history of the previous administration's use of zero tolerance and family separation behind us, the president is perfectly comfortable with the Department of Justice settling with the individuals and families who are currently in litigation with the U.S. government.
The White House also touched on what Biden meant when he first denied the reports.
What he was reacting to was the dollar figure that was mentioned, that you mentioned to him yesterday. As press accounts to date indicate, there's been press accounts on this, DOJ made clear to the plaintiffs that the reported figures are higher than anywhere that a settlement can land. Again, this is something that the Department of Justice can speak to. I do not have anything more to add to this.
The Biden administration continues to blame the Trump administration for the current migrant crisis, but officials say they're making considerable progress toward delivering on their plan.
That's how we got here, is because of the last administration. This is what we're trying to deal with here in this administration.
An immigration analyst from the Bipartisan Policy Center says the Biden administration didn't prepare enough for the influx of illegal immigrants.
They didn't prepare for the potential of increased arrivals. And they really thought that they could message to migrants, don't come yet, we're fixing it, and they would listen. And that's not how it happened.
At the same time, Republican Senators Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley are reaching out for answers. They're asking Attorney General Merrick Garland to clarify his stance on reports of the alleged settlement with illegal immigrants. In a letter on Thursday, they asked, are these settlements under consideration or are they not?
The Justice Department is ramping up efforts to combat ransomware attacks and cybercrimes. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco says there will be more arrests relating to cybercrimes in the days and weeks to come. Here are the details.
The Justice Department extradited a suspected Russian cybercriminal last week who was hiding out in South Korea. The goal, to get him to face trial in the U.S. Prosecutors say the man participated in a cyber gang whose malicious software TrickBot infected millions of computers.
So what you saw last week is a perfect example of the type of message we're trying to get out there. And that is that if you come for us, we're going to come for you. So in the days and the weeks to come, you're going to see more arrests, more seizures, and you're going to see more operations like we did last week.
The federal government has publicly discouraged paying ransom to hackers, but officials have shown no interest in prosecuting companies that do so. Monaco says her department was prepared to sue federal contractors who failed to disclose that they've been hacked or who failed to meet cybersecurity standards.
I think really what we want to do is work with victim companies, make sure they're not re-victimized by the system, that they come forward, that they work with us so that A, we can try and get any ransom they decide to pay back, and most importantly, understand what the threat is so we can stop the follow-on victim.
The Justice Department was among the agencies hit hard by the SolarWinds breach last year. Russian government hackers exploited a supply chain vulnerability to gain access to the networks of federal departments and private companies.
No industry, no part of government is immune from a sophisticated supply chain attack like that one. So we're looking and undertaking that assessment. The thing we have to remember is we need to practice what we preach and be doing the same type of vigilance on our cybersecurity that we are asking companies to do.
Justice Department officials in April formed a ransomware task force of prosecutors and agents. They've directed U.S. attorney offices to report ransomware cases to Washington just as they would terrorism attacks.
A senior official at the Justice Department under former President Trump is testifying today before a House of Representatives committee about the January 6 Capitol breach. Last week, the Congressional Committee investigated the breach, delaying testimony by Jeffrey Clark because he retained a new lawyer. Clark is the former acting head of the Justice Department's Civil Division. He supported Trump's claims that Biden's victory in the November 2020 election was the result of fraud. Last month, the committee announced it had issued a subpoena to Clark, asking him to produce records and testify at a deposition. The committee says it needs to understand all the details about efforts inside the previous administration to amplify messages about election fraud. Virginia's newly elected Attorney General says he plans to investigate sexual assaults in Loudoun County public schools. And he says he will develop new legislation to allow his office to intervene in cases where the prosecution is not adequate. Jason Miyares told reporters he is aware of horrific cases of sexual assault, and he doesn't like the way prosecutors handle those cases. The Loudoun County Commonwealth's attorney says she welcomed Miyares' involvement in the cases, but says her office did the best they could with the limited information they were given. People have criticized the Loudoun County public school system over its lack of transparency and failure to take the necessary actions on sexual assault incidents. It was revealed that a student who allegedly sexually assaulted another student was transferred to another high school and then proceeded to sexually assault a second student. The school system superintendent last month apologized for the school district's handling of the cases and promised to handle it differently in the future. Now we turn to the vaccine mandates. They're not without controversy. On the federal level, Biden says they could end the pandemic, but this and local mandates are having offshoot effects. We're seeing cops in Denver fired for refusing the vaccine, and a Washington sheriff who bought a billboard in New York City to recruit officers. Some of the ads say you don't need the vaccine to join their force. The Spokane County Sheriff's Office in Washington State says they're looking for officers around the country. The office purchased a billboard in New York City to recruit experienced officers. They're targeting departments in areas that they say have disrespected their police.
The Spokane County Board of County Commissioners, the Spokane Valley City Council last year drafted resolutions and passed them supporting their law enforcement. So we're out looking for good qualified law enforcement officers from across the United States. We've targeted Denver, Austin, Portland, Seattle, and we'll be going to Southern California next.
The sheriff is apparently pointing to anti-police protests in 2020, as well as vaccine requirements imposed on officers by these local governments, though he says the ads are not intended to attract unvaccinated officers. At the same time, 2 Denver officers and a deputy were fired for opting out of the vaccine. It comes as Grant County Sheriff's Office in Washington State hires 2 former troopers. Those troopers left the Washington State Patrol because of the vaccine requirement. And a lawsuit in California involving nearly 600 LA County firefighters alleges the vaccine requirement goes against their autonomous privacy rights. A firefighter speaks out.
I think it's morally wrong to threaten termination for employees who have delivered for the people of this city time in and time after time. This is not just the case of our firefighters, it's for all essential workers. The brothers and sisters that I represent today have been here for the city of Los Angeles, and I'm asking for the city of Los Angeles to be with us.
LA County did not respond to a request for comment by airtime, but the county says it seeks to have a safe and secure workplace and says vaccination is the most effective way to limit COVID hospitalizations and deaths. Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci are again sparring over gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. The senator wants Fauci to take responsibility for funding the research, while Fauci continues to deny it. NTD's Don Ma has more.
During Thursday's meeting of the Senate Committee on Health, Senator Rand Paul accused Dr. Anthony Fauci of misleading the public about the research that NIH had funded at the Wuhan lab.
What we are saying is that this was risky type of research, gain-of-function research. It was risky to share this with the Chinese, and that COVID may have been created from a not yet revealed virus. We don't anticipate the Chinese are going to reveal the virus if it came from their lab.
In an interview before the hearing, the senator told NTD host Bo Davidson what he was trying to achieve.
What happens if it's worse the next time? What if a virus leaks from a lab that has 15% mortality or 50% mortality? All of the evidence now is pointing towards this coming from a lab. If it came from a lab, it could happen again. So really what we need to do is be discussing, should we be doing gain-of-function research? Should the taxpayer be funding it?
Fauci continues to deny that studies done at the Wuhan lab match the definition of gain-of-function research.
The guidelines are very, very clear that you have to be dealing with a pathogen that clearly is shown and very likely to be highly transmissible in an uncontrollable way in humans and to have a high degree of morbidity and mortality, and that you do experiments to enhance that, hence the word EPPP, enhanced pathogens of
So when EcoHealth Alliance took the virus SHC014 and combined it with WIV1 and caused a recombinant virus that doesn't exist in nature, and it made mice sicker, mice that had humanized cells, you're saying that that's not gain-of-function research?
Fauci says he disagrees with many points the senator made, including his speculation of the origins of the virus.
You have said that I am unwilling to take any responsibility for the current pandemic. I have no responsibility for the current pandemic. The current pandemic, okay? Number 2, you said the overwhelming amount of evidence indicates that's a lab leak. I believe most card-carrying viral phylogenists and molecular virologists would disagree with you that is much more likely, even though we leave open all possibilities, it's much more likely that this was a natural occurrence.
Paul says he doesn't expect Fauci to admit that he approved NIH funding for gain-of-function research in Wuhan. He also says that Fauci's repeated denials have made him lose credibility. Don Ma, NTD News.
A White House aide who traveled with President Biden to Scotland is still abroad after testing positive for COVID-19. The aide is currently awaiting a follow-up test. A White House official told CNN the aide didn't come close to Biden and wasn't showing symptoms. A White House staff member who was in close proximity to the aide tested negative, and Biden also tested negative. Their last tests were Tuesday. And White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki remains in quarantine. She tested positive for COVID on Sunday. And in Chicago, the conversation turns towards local Illinoisans. They tell us how the pandemic is affecting their livelihoods and the livelihoods of those they love, as well as voicing concern about the pandemic's effect on society as a whole.
Around 500 people came together to protest Illinois vaccine mandates in downtown Chicago on November 3rd. Children's Health Defense organized the event.
My husband is one of the 41 stripped officers in Chicago. What that means is he had to give up his gun and his badge, and he's at home. They won't let him work. He's not getting paid because he will not comply with the city's request or requirement that they let their health portal know whether he's vaccinated or he's not vaccinated.
Giampa's husband served the Chicago police for 28 years.
There is no scientific or ethical reason for a mandate for a vaccine that does not stop transmission or even decrease transmission. No one else should be coerced into taking it.
Holmes says divides are growing among professionals.
It creates a lot of division. We've lost a lot of professionals, both in healthcare, within the police force, within the fire departments.
The corporate media has sort of encouraged that division, by putting out a lot of information about it being a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and have censored and restricted other information.
One of the speakers at the rally, Dr. Jacob Ozzie, speaks about the danger of vaccines to children. He also said the mandate is a violation of one of the Nuremberg codes, which requires voluntary consent of the human subject on medical experiments.
But there's lots of research that shows that the vaccine itself is more dangerous than COVID for children, and so there's this steady stripping away of rights and responsibilities and more control. So the only vaccines that are available are experimental. Coercing somebody to take part in a vaccine trial or a medication trial is really a violation. Well, it's a Nuremberg violation.
The speakers of the rally call for everyone to stand up to tyranny and say no to vaccine mandates.
The U.S. government and Emergent Biosolutions have mutually ended their contract, which had Emergent making COVID-19 vaccine ingredients. Emergent operates the facility in Baltimore where millions of Johnson & Johnson vaccines were contaminated and unusable. The facility paused production, but eventually resumed producing J&J vaccines, though it never resumed making AstraZeneca's vaccine. The contract's cancellation has no impact on the J&J vaccine, and Emergent will continue to make it at the plant. That's because of a commercial contract negotiated outside of the federal government. Emergent officials said the contract is ending because of execution issues and a lack of operational investments by all presidential administrations. A shooting between rival gangs broke out Thursday on the beach of a Mexican resort. 2 suspected drug dealers were killed amid the crossfire, sending guests scrambling for safety.
2 suspected drug gang members were shot dead on a beachfront near the Mexican resort of Cancun. Police said earlier that armed individuals were spotted in the beach area. Reports of gunshots have been circulating on social media. Twitter user Mike Sington posted videos of guests taking shelter in a nearby hotel lobby. The Attorney General's office in the state of Quintana Roo later explained that rival groups had faced off on the beach.
And these people, these armed hooded people arrived, I insist, by sea and along the federal zone on the beach, carried out this situation. And of course, fortunately, and it is very relevant to say it, no tourist was seriously injured.
Local media reported at least 1 tourist was treated for a head injury. Authorities also noted a similar crossfire broke out a few weeks ago at another beach, in an incident that killed 2 tourists.
The alleged leader of the MS-13 has replaced Robert William Fisher on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list. The agency is calling him armed and dangerous. A reward of up to $100,000 is offered for information leading to the arrest of Carias. He's been federally charged for racketeering, cocaine importation, and possession of machine guns. According to the FBI, Carrillas was the head of the Honduras branch of MS-13. He's helped bolster the violent gang throughout Central and North America. The FBI describes him as a Hispanic male with black hair and brown eyes, born in Honduras. He is 5 feet, 5 inches tall, weighs 160 pounds, and uses the alias Porky. The criminal leader marks the 526th addition to the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. New York City's anti-riot unit dissolved a coal miners' protest in Manhattan. The protest is part of a labor strike that has been going on for months now. NTD's Arian Pastar was on the scene.
Coal miners from all over the U.S. came to New York City to support their colleagues in Alabama. It was a peaceful protest, but because some of them illegally blocked the street, they're now being taken away by the police.
Since you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on a charge of disorderly conduct.
The protest was held in front of investment company BlackRock, which is the main investor of a major coal producer in Alabama. Workers in Alabama waived their salaries and holidays with the promise to eventually be reimbursed, but now they aren't getting it back. So the workers feel abused.
They felt as though that they were in it with the company, and then the company is only in it to make huge profits and didn't care about the folks that actually go to these coal mines.
Protesters say the BlackRock investors have no idea what it's like working in those mines.
They just need to go into mines to really realize what you have to go through in this life. It's a rough job. It deteriorates your body, you know. So I've had neck replacements and everything since I've been hurt.
But, you know, it's easy to sit up in that building right there and do what they do for 50 years and never get hurt.
But why are they protesting at the investors and not at the employer's office?
BlackRock tells them what to do.
Demonstrators came from as far away as Texas all the way to New York to support their fellow miners.
And I'm here to support my sisters and brothers from the South.
Even though it isn't their problem.
These guys down there are working just like we used to work in the mine. We're retired now, but these guys are trying to work, making a living for their family. They got kids at home. We know what it's like.
BlackRock didn't get back to us with a statement before broadcast. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Colorado authorities believe they've solved a nearly 4-decade-old cold case in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Skeletal remains found on the west side of the national park are believed to be those of 27-year-old Rudi Moller from Germany. Moller vanished while mountaineering in February of 1983. The FBI Evidence Response Team assisted park rangers with the recovery of the hiker's remains, which were found in a high elevation area above 11,000 feet. The Grand County's coroner's office worked closely with the German government to help identify the remains and to notify the Moller family. Just ahead, hundreds of little robots now cruise college campuses and city sidewalks in the U.S. and the U.K. delivering food, but some cities aren't on board. That and more on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. This is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work.
The new MyPillow towels are exclusively made with 100% USA combed cotton with proprietary technology and with maximum absorbency. They dry you faster and are guaranteed to work.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow. And to thank you for all your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get my dog beds for as low as $19.99. Or for a limited time, you can get my 6-piece towel sets, regularly $109.99, now only $39.99. The lowest price ever with your promo code.
With inflation comes shortages. The next time you visit your go-to restaurant, your favorite dish might not be in the menu anymore. That's what's happening to restaurants across the U.S. because of supply chain woes. NTD's Phil Zoe has the story.
The National Restaurant Association says 95% of restaurateurs are experiencing supply issues, and every 3 out of 4 restaurants are forced to change their menus.
Now with the supply chain issues, many of the products that they have been purchasing have skyrocketed in the multiples.
NTD News spoke to David Gattenford, owner of Valbella Restaurant in the heart of Manhattan, near Central Park and Fifth Avenue.
We have a big problem with the fish, meat, vegetable, grocery, even some of the wine that we serve in this location.
For one of their seafood specials, the owner says South African lobster tails cost him $30 a pound on a Monday, but the following Friday, it went up to $50 a pound.
Actually, even you want to pay the $50 a pound, they said we don't know when we will have it for you.
Besides being short on food, the owner is also short on staff.
Every morning I get up, I don't know I'm going to be a dishwasher, cook, busboy, waiter, or the owner.
In a letter to President Biden, the National Restaurant Association is asking for lower tariffs on food, drinks, and equipment so supplies can get to restaurants faster. Gattenfart says he wants to hire more people, even open a new location, but city agencies are also short on staff. His new restaurant has been delayed for over a year.
Even the government doesn't help us to expedite the process that we can put more people to work.
President Biden said he would help, starting with the opening of 2 California ports to 24 hours around the clock. But the owner here at Valbella Restaurant in Manhattan says he doesn't plan to raise prices on his customers, even if it means he's making less money. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
The CDC is warning doctors to be on the lookout for a rare tropical disease. It's connected to an aromatherapy spray sold at Walmart. The Better Home and Gardens aromatherapy room spray with gemstones was already linked to a death in Georgia. Now, someone in Kansas has died, and cases have been reported in Minnesota and Texas as well. The CDC issued a new alert for healthcare professionals to beware of the potential symptoms of exposure. Scientists believe the whole lineup of scented sprays are contaminated with a deadly form of bacteria, possibly from its manufacturer in India. Last month, the CDC said it had traced the case of a fatal infection in Georgia to an aromatherapy spray sold by Walmart. The infection mystified doctors. Melioidosis, a tropical disease, is usually linked to travel, and none of the infected people had traveled. The CDC recommends that surfaces and counters that come in contact with the bacteria need to be wiped down with disinfectant. Consumers are urged to immediately stop using the spray, double bag it, and return it to Walmart for a full refund. And in other news, hundreds of little robots are now navigating college campuses and city sidewalks in the US and the UK and elsewhere, delivering food, meeting the rising demand for home delivery since the pandemic began. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Companies say pandemic-related labor shortages and a growing preference for contactless delivery have vastly accelerated the robot's deployment. Starship Technologies recently completed its 2 millionth delivery.
We're likely to see a lot of quick expansion, and the expansion is being accelerated, 1, by COVID, and 2, by the labor shortage.
The company is delivering food on 20 U.S. campuses. 25 more will be added soon.
Students love them. They're part of the BG family now. They're recognized all over campus, and they just blend in well with the student population.
They're also operating on sidewalks in Milton Keynes, England, Modesto, California, and the company's hometown of Tallinn, Estonia. Robot designs vary, but generally they use cameras, sensors, GPS, and sometimes laser scanners to navigate sidewalks and even cross streets autonomously.
It's gone from being really just a nice thing to have to really more of an essential service. And, our students are loving it.
When a robot arrives at its destination, customers type a code into their phones to open the lid and retrieve their food. Shek is a repeat customer.
Where's your delivery?
I want to say about 3 to 4 times a week. Most of my classes, right after I get out, the robot just pulls up just in time for me to get some lunch.
The robots do have their drawbacks. They're electric, so they must recharge regularly. They're also slow, and they generally stay within a small pre-mapped radius. And some big cities with crowded sidewalks, like New York, Beijing, and San Francisco, aren't welcoming them. But delivery companies are also jumping into the market.
I think right now we're at that point where for something like these delivery rovers, the technology we believe is really ready to roll out in a big way.
Grubhub recently partnered with Russian robot maker Yandex to deploy 50 robots on the campus of Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. Grubhub plans to serve more college campuses soon. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Panic buying seems to be getting worse in China, with people even fighting in stores. And the CCP virus is spreading again to almost 20 provinces. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the story.
Panic buying continues in China and seems to get worse. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP virus, spread to about 20 provinces in the country on Thursday. On Wednesday, more than 100 people tested positive for the virus. This, according to state-controlled media. We cannot verify the numbers, but in China, it's commonly believed that the real number is often higher than the official reports. Even if Beijing underreported the numbers, this would still be a big change to the so-called zero-case policy that led to extremely strict pandemic control measures. Earlier this week, amidst the rising cases, Chinese authorities suggested residents should stockpile. This rare move seemed to trigger even more concern and uncertainty. According to local media in Zhengzhou City, customers used to place their items in bags, but now they are filling their carts to the rim. And they are not only buying food, but also laundry detergent, toothpaste, toilet paper, and disinfectant. One of the customers told local media she had already bought 150 pounds of rice and the same amount of flour. Her reason? She says the authorities suggested that citizens stockpile, and she also feared that she would not be able to go out to shop while under lockdown. The same is happening in many other areas around the country. People even fight with each other while panic buying. Rice is one of the most wanted foods right now. A customer from southwest China's Chongqing city says that all noodles, rice, and even eggs are sold out. China's nuclear threat level has more than doubled compared to 2020, according to a recent assessment from the Pentagon. In the Defense Department's annual China Military Power Report on Wednesday, it estimated that the accelerating pace of the PLA's nuclear expansion may enable the PRC, People's Republic of China, to have up to about 700 deliverable nuclear warheads by 2027. And by 2030, the report says, the PRC likely intends to have at least 1,000 warheads. This new estimated figure is a sharp increase from what the DoD projected just last year. In its 2020 report, the Pentagon warned that the Chinese arsenal would top 400 by the end of the decade. That's more than a twofold difference compared to the DoD's current projections. The report also says that China may already have developed the ability to launch ballistic missiles from land, air, and sea, and points out that China is clear in its ambitions to be competitive with world-class military powers like the U.S. Though China's nuclear power is still dwarfed by the U.S., the United States has a stockpile of 3,750 nuclear warheads. On Thursday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry commented on the Pentagon's assessment. It said the report is full of prejudice and is based on gossip.
Since National Victims of Communism Day was declared in 2017 under former President Trump, more Americans have come to recognize the crimes committed by communist regimes. But have we done enough to avoid these crimes being repeated? NTD's Kay Rubacek has the story.
November 7th is National Victims of Communism Day. But with no trials ever held for the crimes of communism, do we really know who the victims are?
This is like serious paint. These guys knew what they were doing. You know, there's another piece in Manhattan as well. I wonder how many other pieces there are around the world. My goodness me. I am touching the Berlin Wall, a piece of the Berlin Wall from Germany.
Such a narrow line between freedom on one side and socialism, communism on the other side.
Oh my goodness, you're right. This is a thin line between freedom and slavery. It's a strong line, but it's a thin line.
I've always seen the Berlin Wall as a symbol of communism. It was built to divide the people of Germany. Those who were forced to live under Soviet communism terror on the east side, and those who lived free on the west. This man, Terry Noir, was an artist who painted the west side of the wall, the freedom side, during those terrifying times.
Les gens dans la rue, ils me reprochaient de peindre des belles couleurs sur le mur pour les touristes.
He says here in French, people on the street accused me of painting nice colors on the wall to turn it into a tourist attraction. I told them that's impossible, because even if you apply tons of paint onto the wall, it will never be beautiful. This is a wall which killed about 130 people and which put people into prison for years and years. The wall was smashed in 1989 when Soviet communism collapsed and those captive under communism were freed. Now, some memorials for some of the murdered exist. And pieces of the wall still stand as a reminder of the terror of communism. But have we forgotten?
Is history being taught to people in a real way? Look at this. They don't say that it was the communist regime in East Germany that would kill them if they passed this wall. This could be so misleading if you didn't know the history of it. The way that people looked at, Nazi Germany and recognized that what they did was wrong was by looking at the human cost.
Tune in to Life and Times every week on NTD television.
Coming up, NASA introduces a mission designed to protect the Earth from asteroids. The agency will launch a spacecraft to crash into and redirect a double asteroid. That and more on NTD News.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
NASA introduced the space agency's first planetary defense test mission, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART. They plan to launch a spacecraft later this month on a mission to crash into an asteroid.
Can an asteroid on a collision course with our planet be deflected? That's what NASA wants to find out. On Thursday, it introduced a spacecraft they plan to launch later this month on a mission to crash into one. They want to see if its impact will change the asteroid's course. The Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, is the space agency's first test mission of a planetary defense system. They plan to target a double asteroid, Didymus and its moon Dimorphos. Neither pose a threat to Earth, as NASA's planetary defense officer, Lindley Johnson, explained.
This is a test. We don't want to be in a situation where an asteroid is headed toward Earth and then have to be testing this kind of capability. We want to know about both how the spacecraft works and what the reaction will be by the asteroid to the impact before we ever get in a situation like that.
The mission's success rests on the shape of the asteroid, which systems engineer Elena Adams says won't be known until the spacecraft gets there.
Our impact angle on the plane of Dimorphos is really uncertain right now, and it's really going to depend on what Dimorphos actually looks like, and we're not going to find that out until the last, well, let's be honest, last 20 seconds when we're about to hit.
According to NASA's website, no known asteroid larger than 140 meters in size has a significant chance to hit Earth for the next 100 years. But they also estimate that less than half of those asteroids are accounted for. DART plans to launch the spacecraft on November 24 from California's Vandenberg Air Force Base. It is expected to reach the target asteroids by next fall.
Elon Musk's SpaceX has won the latest court battle for a lucrative NASA contract over fellow billionaire Jeff Bezos. The Amazon founder's Blue Origin sued NASA because it favored the SpaceX landing system in America's return to the moon. The SpaceX proposal had already been approved by the Government Accountability Office, and a federal court affirmed the decision yesterday. SpaceX was the low bidder at $2.9 billion. That's about half the price that Blue Origin quoted. Work on the lunar lander had been on hold pending the outcome of the lawsuit. Now, NASA says it will resume as soon as possible. The EU's decision to bestow a Croatian sweet dessert wine with special geographical status has angered Italian winemakers. They argue the bubbly vino could be confused with their own world-famous sparkling wine, Prosecco. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Overlooking the Gulf of Trieste, Milos Spar is reviving a centuries-old winemaking tradition. Ethnic Slovene Italians call this Prosecco, a close relative of the bubbly Prosecco. In the traditions handed down by Slovene minority winemakers, they say Prosecco came first.
Ma il Prosecco è originale perché intanto nasce 300 anni prima del Prosecco.
Prosecco is the original because it was born 300 years before Prosecco wine, and then the vine was brought from Prosecco to Veneto and Valdobbiadene. So it is the father of Prosecco, Prosecco, Prosec, and all other variants. And here we have the history. Already in the 1600s there was a sparkling procedure with the ancestral method, which is completely different from the current sparkling process used by producers from Veneto.
Completamente diverso dalla spummentazione che fanno adesso I veneti.
Now, Prosecco makers are battling to ban Croatian winemakers from using the name Prosec. And the entire European Union system of geographical and origin designations to protect and guarantee the quality of artisanal food, wine, and spirits is up in the air. Italy's Prosecco won geographical protection for its wines 12 years ago when it established the Prosecco DOC region, and the country is hopeful the EU will be obliged to protect their product.
Non è una questione economica, è una questione di principio.
It is not a financial issue, it's a question of principle. And this time around we need to fight all together, because we need to give coherence to Europe and everything it has done in the past, as well as what denomination protection will do and mean from here on out.
Quello che può rappresentare la tutela delle denominazioni da qui in avanti.
Prosecco organizations point to Italy's lost battle in 2006 to use the name Tokai for a single varietal white wine. In that case, the EU ruled that the name was tied to Hungary's Tokaji region, and granted exclusive use of the name because of its protected geographical location. In Italy, Tokai was a grape, not a region.
First off, the system of protection would be weakened. On an international level, we have foreign authorities from different countries around the world that recognize us and protect us from copies or imitations. And if Prosecco were to be accepted, it is obvious that it would be difficult to explain to foreign authorities that they have to protect us when the European Union doesn't guarantee this protection.
The Italian government has pledged to defend Prosecco's name, and other makers of protected denomination products like Parmigiano Reggiano cheese and champagne are paying attention. The dispute will be decided in the coming months in Brussels. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And now on to health. Inflammation can be a lifesaver, but all too often it's a hidden source of illness. Let's take a look at how we can reduce it. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. Inflammation is a part of life and it can be a really good thing. It helps you heal from colds, bruises, bumps, and more. But too much inflammation, such as when it flares up when there's no need for it, can be dangerous. And it happens to a lot of people. Called chronic inflammation, this type of inflammation sets the immune system into motion almost constantly. Chronic inflammation is associated with a host of chronic health conditions. A few examples include heart disease and type 2 diabetes, but age is also a factor. Chronic, low-grade inflammation can occur naturally in some older bodies, particularly if the person is carrying extra fat around the waistline. Fat cells generate inflammatory compounds. The more fat you are carrying, the more inflammation a person is likely to experience in their body. Although some amount of age-related inflammation might be inevitable, you can still do many things to keep it under control. Working yourself to a healthy weight can help. When you shrink your fat cells, you can't generate as many inflammatory compounds. One study suggested that losing just 5 to 10% of total body weight can lead to a significant drop in inflammatory hormones. Assessing your diet can also help to reduce inflammation. Prioritize colorful fruits and vegetables. Also, try to limit processed foods and sugary sodas. Another thing you can do is to include more fish in your diet, as they can help with inflammation reduction. Activity can also help to lower inflammation. One study shows that as little as 20 minutes of fast walking can be enough to lower inflammatory markers in the body. Virtually any type of movement will work, and doing it for at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days per week, is even better. Stress management and good sleep can keep inflammation under control as well. Stress and inconsistent sleep are both associated with higher levels of inflammatory hormones, so getting a handle on those can help. Try techniques that can manage stress, including mindfulness, meditation, exercise, and yoga. Try hobbies such as knitting, gardening, and crafting. Gratitude is a great antidote to stress, so it's worth reflecting on what's right in your life to counter stress-inducing thoughts about problems. You can also work on sleep by setting consistent sleep and wake times. Avoid eating too close to bedtime. Also, remember to limit evening alcohol and make your bedroom a relaxing place.
New Jersey Animal Control has brought in a big one, a bison on the loose. Workers tracked down, contained, and tranquilized the 2,500-pound bison as it roamed free in the state. The bison, named Bicentennial, was taken back to the large farm where he lives with other bison a few miles away. They are pets and not used for meat. The Monmouth County SPCA says while the photo angle makes him look thin, the animal is in ideal shape. It said no humans or animals were harmed in the capture, and it said, quote, "When this giant horned fluffernutter wakes up, he'll be home sweet home." Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.